Hello everyone, welcome to Game Brigade. Today we're going to be diving into Tainted Grail, Kings of Ruin. And this is the latest campaign on GameFound featuring Tainted Grail. And we're going to be diving into this campaign to see if this is a campaign you should be considering backing or skipping, and determining whether or not this one might be for you. So if that sounds interesting, let's dive right in. Before we get to the video, I want to say thank you to Into the AM for sponsoring this video. I'm sporting the Space Kraken right now. It's a great shirt. I really enjoy the fit and feel, especially for a big guy like myself. Finding a shirt that has a true to fit feel is hard to find. And right now, they have a $15 off a bundle when you buy 3 of their graphic tees. In fact, my coupon code BOARDGAME takes an additional 10% off that $15 promo. If you find a shirt, I would really appreciate the support. Thank you, and let's get to the video. Okay, so Tainted Grail, Kings of Ruin. Now, this is the secondary expansion or standalone expansion, I guess I would say, for the Tainted Grail line. Tainted Grail was a big game. I believe it came out in 2017, 2018, and took a lot of people by surprise because it was another game from Awaken Realms, really featuring a big, grandiose design, lots of expansions, lots of potential there, but it also had some hiccups. So Kings of Ruin hopes to have fixed some of those hiccups and bring the game more in line to what people really wish they had when they bought Tainted Grail. And we're going to talk about some of those things as we dive through the campaign. But let's talk about what Tainted Grail's overall theme is like and see if that game might be for you. So the idea of Tainted Grail is you are going to be a character traversing through this northern kind of a Saxon realm, and things aren't quite normal. Things are a little weird. Things are a little different. Creatures you encounter, monsters you encounter, people you encounter are all going to be a little screw loose. And you might not be also the gleaming gem yourself either. And in the original Tainted Grail, you would go through and explore these regions, but there was a fog or a darkness that was hard to penetrate through. So you had to light these menhirs to be able to see things and to explore the territories. And they only revealed a specific amount of the exploration available in the game. And to keep those lit, it required players to continually grind different types of resources to feed to the menhirs. Otherwise, they would go out, and then you would be in a situation where you couldn't explore anymore. That was a very key divisive moment in the original Tainted Grail, as players felt the game became more grindy and less enjoyable for the experience that they were getting. Now, I think it's interesting because there are times where grind is appreciated, but it doesn't really work well in a board game setting. I could say in a video game setting, I could totally be fine grinding away and doing things, but for some reason it works in that setting. It doesn't really work as well in the board game setting when you really want to experience the game you're presented with in a concise manner as well for time considerations. So Tainted Grail had this really cool idea that was really fleshed out, pretty interestingly done in the lore of the game, but because of the way it was implemented, it caused a lot of players to have to house rule this game. In fact, Tainted Grail might be one of the most touted games I've seen where people love the system and love the experience and the story, but have to tell me with caveats, there's always an asterisk, but we had to change this with the gameplay, and that is never an enjoyable moment. So, with Kings of Ruin, Awaken Realms came back and said, okay, we got a game that people like, but there's problems with it. So what can we do to fix that system? The first thing was they removed some of the grindy elements of the campaign. They also changed some of the way the encounters work, especially the diplomacy, as you're moving through this game. So why back now? Of course, they have Be Part of the Journey. They have a voting system. I'm not very much impressed personally with the way the voting system works with Awaken Realms. Some people love it. And I will say back in the day, I used to like the voting system. But what ends up happening is I see situations where they'll put up a poll. They'll say, here's our 4 options. And the point of this is that you get to be directly involved in the creation and the direction the game takes. So people will say, okay, here's our 4 options. pick which one you think fits best for this character's design. And if you don't like the design, it might impact your game. So rather than like when you have a toddler, you want to give them less options instead of giving them more options, because then they have less things to complain about. I personally wish Awaken Realms would take their design and be confident with their choices and show us a finished product rather than the whole voting situation. But that's me personally. Some people love it. So again, I'm whatever. So if you want to back now, that you can be part of the journey. You're also going to get what they claim up to a 50% lower the MSRP of the core box and stretch goals than what you see in retail. I will say that you are getting a fairly decent price here on the Kickstarter prices. It's hard to find Tainted Grail in retail regardless, so I don't know how much the MSRP really matters, because most of the time these are not going to be available at a retail outlet anyways, and you get to play it faster, get it first. That's up to you if you find that as a value or not. What we're really going to want to know is the gameplay and what we're getting out of this product worth it for you? That's what really matters when we're talking about backing a game. We're also going to have the opportunity, if you are new to the Tainted Grail section, to get the first campaign, which is the Fall of Avalon, and it's also the 2.0 section. So if you are a original backer and you want to update your game, we'll talk about that as well. The Fall of Avalon is the original Tainted Grail. Kings of Ruin is the newest expansion. Here they have all the pledges. We're actually going to skip that. We're just going to come right down here and talk about what Kings of Ruin is bringing in terms of the realm. So in terms of the lore. And so in this game, you are going to be exploring a different region here. This is not the same region from the original Tainted Grail. Completely different region. Merlin never arrived here and set up his menhirs, and so instead the people who lived in this region had to come up with different ways to combat the weirdness. So part of that, so with the lore, they had Merlin, who constructed or helped build these large things. He was involved in that somehow. And that's what used to light and keep the weirdness fog away. In this one, the people had to come up with a different solution. So this is that gameplay discussing and changing situations to also affect the gameplay, because now the waystones that are replaced in the menhirs do not go out. So your exploration is going to be more enjoyable. I think that's interesting how they're kind of combining the lore with the gameplay. So players are going to be exploring this region, and they're really highlighting the exploration this time. Tainted Grail is an exploration game. The original game did not really encourage that exploration, because not only was it hard to keep things lit and you had to constantly be running different errands to keep it going, you also had to use your resources to explore. And sometimes you had to have that a decision-making process of, do I waste resources to flip this tile and to continue to the exploration, or do I keep moving down to where I think I need to go based on the mission at hand? A lot of times players felt like they were missing out on some of the experiences by not being able to explore. So in Kings of Ruin, they've changed it. Exploration is now a free action, doesn't cost any resources to flip a tile, and in fact, they've also changed the way the tiles work. In the original game, the tiles were basically the same art, but there was a more zoomed in and had some maybe hidden details on the backside. Many players didn't take advantage of those options. In fact, they still referenced their journal, and so Awaken Realms said, okay, obviously this is not working. We need to come back and figure out a better way to implement the card system. So now they have a double-sided with the weirdness side on one end and then the unweirdness normal side on the reverse. This also gives players the opportunity to traverse through the weirdness, where they can experience different types of effects on the land. Maybe more ghosts or astral beings arise. Maybe buildings that were once risen and now have fallen are going to show their shadowy figures within the weirdness. A lot of things are going to be changing based on this environmental hazard, which is great. And roaming through the lands will be these Kings of Ruin, which is going to be the namesake of the game, where these characters who are going to be these forgotten kings or forgotten elements or these astral figures are going to be roaming the land, and players are going to be interacting with them through each region, as each one controls a different region, and they're going to be either interacting with them militarily or diplomatically, based on the decisions the players make throughout the game. And each encounter will scale more difficulty as you go through. So that's awesome. So here we have the first one that's been spoiled, which is Claudine the Unknighted. And Claudine, I believe, was a person who really wanted to be a royal knight, was in love with the grandiose appeal of that knighthood. And so that is kind of reminiscent in their character design here. So now we can come on up to the rewards. There are multiple different pledge levels available here for Kings of Ruin as well as Tainted Grail. We're going to kind of dive through and talk about what each one looks like to help you make a breakdown in terms of the pricing and what might be fit for you. They're featuring this one, the Kings of Ruin Excalibur Pledge, which is offering a miniature box, which is the Weird Encounter. So let's talk about what this is. This is the 21 beautiful miniatures that are replacing, tokens and whatnot to give the game board more presence and more immersion effect, but this is not required for the gameplay experience. This is purely cosmetic, so if this is something you don't necessarily need, you could skip it. You'll also notice it says Sundrop up here. What is Sundrop? A lot of people are unsure what that is. Sundrop is a technique that Awaken Realms has perfected within their games through with their manufacturer, where they add a texture effect or an oiling or inking or shadowing effect to their miniatures to bring out the details within the miniature. It's basically just a shading effect on your miniatures. And when you click, let's see if I can see an example. These are not very good examples. You'll notice that they'll look more brown within their art. It's hard to see something here that kind of matches it. But they're going to be more brown. Sometimes they can colorize them to be more green or red based on the art decision they want to do. And I would recommend, if you watch any reviewer who has miniatures set up, they're always going to have the Sundrop miniatures for this, because Awaken Realms sends the Sundrop miniatures for reviewers to take a look at. But you will notice that it is more expensive to do Sundrop. It is a monetary increase to do that, so you have to value if this is something you're going to do. If you are planning on ever painting those miniatures, it is pointless to do Sundrop. The core pledge, the one that normally would be at the top because this is featured, it's not there, is the King of Ruin pledge at $99. This is the core box, standalone core box, as well as all stretch goals that will be included in this game, either through the monetary unlocks or the daily unlocks. This is the core pledge. This is the one we're going to be looking at in terms of the value at $99. You can also look at the Fall of Avalon core pledge. This is the original campaign we talked about with Tainted Grail. This is the 2.0 version, so there are a little bit more costs associated with it as they added more stuff, and that's coming in at $119. So here's kind of that example of those Sundrop-like miniatures, a little bit more brownish in terms of their color, but the inking that is on there is allowing the details of the miniature to really pop and be visible from further away. We have the Knight of Avalon pledge. This is for $300. Basically a gameplay version if you want all of the gameplay for Tainted Grail as well as Knights of Ruin. This is what you're going to be looking at. You have some of the add-ons as well that are gameplay related for players to take a look at, and we'll talk about those individually here in a second. And then you have the Warlord of Avalon, which is basically everything, includes cosmetic upgrades as well, for $600, effectively $579. So let's talk about what these individual items might be if they're for you. You've got the Weird Encounters. This is what we already talked about. You can see $70, $69 for just the standard, $95 for that Sundrop. So that's that key difference. That inking process on the miniatures is going to cost you significantly more for the same product. So if you like that stuff, if the cost is okay, Sundrop's pretty sweet. I personally have never purchased Sundrop for any of my Tainted Grail or any of my Awaken Realms products personally. So take that as you will. And then you've got some more of these minis, and these are just purely add-ons. This was, I believe, the free add-on if you followed the campaign. Now you have to pay $8 for it, which is unfortunate. If you followed the campaign prior to the launch, you got it for free. Congratulations. So here we have some more stretch goals and boxes. Again, these are all gameplay related and can be added on a la carte if you would like. War runes are just additional runes. You have the Forever Autumn. This is a standalone side quest. And then these are the Dice Tower 2021 Kickstarter promos that were included in the Dice Tower Kickstarter. So if you would like to pick those up, those are now available. So they have a whole bunch of stuff. They also have this playmat, which I think is interesting. I would personally not be getting this because I don't really feel like I would need it. But I've had a lot of people talking about it. The playmats generally for games like these do hold their value, but I would personally not recommend getting it myself. So overall, what are our thoughts on the Kings of Ruin pledge from what I've seen with the gameplay changes as well as things going forward? It looks like they've really fixed a lot of the problems that Tainted Grail has, which has kept a lot of people from wanting to dive into it, because Tainted Grail is kind of a beast of a box. It's a big box game. It's got a lot of different expansions, but knowing that there were so many issues with the core mechanisms of the game really made it more difficult to want to dive into the experience unless you're willing to house rule it. Kings of Ruin basically is going to fix a lot of those things, take a look at the game and say, okay, what can we do to make this game more approachable from a wider audience base? I do like that. I do think it's going to be interesting. Now, I do have a prototype copy on the way, and I should be getting a review of that up as soon as possible, so be on the lookout for that. And that'll actually give me an opportunity to play the game myself and give you my opinion once I've actually played the game. I can only give you my opinion right now based on the content I've seen of the campaign, as well as watching other people's reviews on the subject. So once I get a chance to actually get my hands on the campaign, I'll be able to have a really good understanding of what to expect. But overall, I do think the Kings of Ruin here is bringing a good faith effort by Awaken Realms to really fix this system and bring the game that really is special and has a pretty cool storyline to a more wider audience that could probably enjoy it. There is a 2.0 section, and I want to talk about that real quick because I think it's kind of important. Yes, Tainted Grail is highly rated. They're talking about that right now. Again, it had a lot of issues that people had issues with. There is an upgrade pack. Let's see here, update pack right here available. So if you do have Tainted Grail, maybe you bought it, you haven't played it yet, you could pick these up as well. And these will update a lot of the rules to more friendly situations, but still keeping within line of the Tainted Grail mechanisms and stories and the way things work. So they have a clear section on the difficulty and the campaign setup, more forgiving story mode. They are changing the rules for the menus to reduce the grind, which I think is just incredibly cool. So this is something to pick up. It's about $36, I believe, to pick everything up. So be aware of that cost, but I think it is worth it. So that's about it. We're going to finish on the big camera. Do I recommend picking this up? Yes, but do I recommend picking up both campaigns? Probably not. Because Kings of Ruin is a standalone expansion, it doesn't require the original game to be completed. I would honestly recommend just picking up one of them. And I'd recommend picking up the Kings of Ruin as it's going to be the more refined. It's had 3 years of development to kind of fix the problems from the original campaign and to bring you a more complete package. That's the one I'd probably lean more heavily into if I were to give you my recommendation. If you are someone who loves this world and you want another system that's somewhat similar, but maybe in somewhat similar vein, you could check out Kingdom. What is that game called? You've got Oathsworn. And I can't remember the other game, dude. I had another recommendation, and I totally forgot about. Hold on one second. Kingdoms Forlorn. That's what I was going to talk about. Very similar in terms of the aesthetic and the look of the creatures and design. Those are two games I would recommend if you want to check out something similar, but maybe a little bit different. If the combat might not be for you in this one, whatever it might be. So my name is Bryan from Game Brigade. Thank you for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Leave me a comment down below. Subscribe if you're new. We'll talk to you very soon. Bye-bye.